acclaimed performers, Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Uganda, and Honorable Minister of Education, Mama Janet Katamuseveni, you are welcome to National Council 20 years celebration. Can we all stand up for the anthems? Thank you. Can I request Reverend Father Alex Kamanzi from St. Mary's National Seminary to come and lead the prayer.
Gathered here in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. We humbly pray to you, most merciful Lord, for National Council of Higher Education. We thank you, Lord, as we gather here for the gift of life, for the opportunity to meet, to share in the joy of National Council of Higher Education, as to make a grand celebration of existence for 20 years. We thank you for the work of the council members, its management, and all the stakeholders, past and present. We dedicate the programs of the celebrations today before you, O Lord. Bless each one of us present. Bless all the organizers of the celebration program, the choirs, the MCs of the day. Bless the speakers of the day, O Lord. the Executive Director, the Chairperson of the Council, the Minister of State for Higher Education, and above all, our chief guest, His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, the President of the Republic of Uganda, and the First Lady, the Minister of Education and Sports, Honorable Nche Kataha Museveni. We thank you, O Lord, for their dedication and service for the Ugandan nation. We pray for their continued well-being. Lord, we humbly and grateful ask for today's celebrations as the National Council of Higher Education celebrates its 20 years journey of existence and what you have done in the life of each one of us here present. We pray that you bless our time together as we celebrate the 20 years of National Council of Higher Education's existence. We ask thee through our Lord Jesus Christ, your Son, who lives and reigns with you in the unity of the Holy Spirit, one God, forever and ever. Amen. And the Lord be with you. May Almighty God bless you, the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Remain in the peace of Christ.
I think Reverend Father deserves a bigger crowd. Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Uganda, General Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, our beloved Mama, the First Lady, and the Minister of Education, Honorable Nche Kataha Museveni. Guests gathered here have been waiting, anxious, and happy to meet you. We thank you for coming. Gathered here, we have ambassadors, we have ministers, we have the council members present and those former. We have the current staff, we have the former staff. Your Excellency, we have a number of personalities who will be introduced later who have made a contribution in higher education. The celebration we are doing today, I know my executive director is soon coming to welcome you. We are launched on 9th of March 2022 by none other than our minister, the First Lady, and Mama Nche Museveni. Your Excellency, on behalf of the organizing committee, we thank her. We thank her. I know my ED will do, Professor Kokor will do much better, but would not take Mama for granted, especially in higher education, especially in National Council. The journey of 20 years, she has made a tremendous mark. We don't want to mention a lot because other people may request Your Excellency, they take her to other ministries. We still want her in education, especially higher education, because she's doing a great work. At this moment, allow me to invite the lady that has transformed higher education in this country. The lady we are proud of, Professor May J. Enokwakol. And we thank you, Honorable Minister, for appointing, on the recommendation of Council, this great lady. She loves with passion, she works with passion, and when she talks of higher education, you feel you want to be higher education yourself. Over to you, Professor.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Uganda, the First Lady and Honorable Minister of Education and Sports, honorable ministers present, honorable members of parliament, heads of foreign embassies and missions, religious leaders, the permanent secretary, Minister of Education and Sports, permanent secretaries present, the chairperson and members of council of Nche, heads of government departments and agencies present, vice chancellors and principals of higher education institutions, senior staff of the Ministry of Education and Sports, staff of the National Council for Higher Education, distinguished invited guests, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure for me to welcome you all to today's historical event of the grand celebrations marking the 20th anniversary of the National Council for Higher Education. I would like in a special way, a very special way, to welcome Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Uganda, General Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, and Mama Janet Museveni, who is also our minister. You are most welcome. We highly appreciate your accepting our invitation and finding time to join us in the celebrations of today amidst your very busy schedule. I also welcome the honorable ministers present and all of you distinguished guests in your respective capacities. Thank you for honoring our invitation. Your Excellency, the National Council for Higher Education was established by an Act of Parliament, the Universities and Other Tertiary Institutions Act 2001, as amended in 2003 and 2006. And this act mandated the Council to regulate and guide the establishment and management of higher education institutions, as well as equate qualifications and advise government on higher education matters. It started operations in January 2003, and today we are celebrating 20 years of serving in the higher education space. Allow me to acknowledge the presence of my predecessor, the former Executive Director, Professor John Opuda Asibo, who has come with his dear wife. Let me also recognize the former staff who are present and request them to stand up for recognition. The pioneer executive director, Professor Abudu Kasozi, is currently out of the country, but he is represented by his daughter, Susan Namatovu, and I request her also to stand for Professor Kasozi. The contribution of the former employees did a lot to establish and anchor National Council for Higher Education in this country, and their contribution is very much appreciated. For this contribution laid a good foundation for what the National Council for Higher Education is today. Your Excellency, the climax of the celebrations which you are officiating today were launched by the First Lady and Minister of Education and Sports, Mama Janet Museveni, on the 9th of March of this year. And on the same day, our new logo and brand identity were launched. The launch was followed by other activities which included a public lecture. The public lecture was delivered by the Executive Director of the National Planning Authority, Dr. Joseph Muvawala, on the subject of financing and investment in the higher education subsector. It was held on the 11th of July this year. This was followed by what we termed the Nche Run, and this was held under the theme Protecting the Environment in Higher Education Institutions through Proper E-Waste Management. It was held on the 20th of August, and the chief guest was the Prime Minister of Uganda, Right Honorable Robin Anabanja. Your Excellency, as we celebrate 20 years of operation under the theme 20 years of Nche transforming higher education in Uganda, permit me to highlight some of the key achievements. I will start with the establishment of the Secretariat. At the beginning of operations, there were 4 pioneer staff, and these will be introduced at an appropriate time. From 4 staff, we now have an establishment of 56. I'm pleased to report that Nche is one of those agencies that recruit highly qualified staff. We are happy also to report that employee turnover is low, as the majority of the staff have been in employment of Nche for more than 12 years. We carried out a restructuring exercise as per our strategic plan of 2020-2021 to 2024-2025, and realigned staff into directorates, departments, and units. This has eased supervision and enabled us to deliver our mandate better. In this structure, we also introduced the Gender and Equity Unit to facilitate regulation and guidance of institutions in mainstreaming gender and equity issues in their work. The second achievement is acquisition of a home. The first staff operated from the Ministry of Education and Sports, but Nche later on moved to a rented house in Chambogo University. I'm pleased to report that after 13 years of renting, Nche managed to complete construction of the annex to the planned main building and moved there in 2016. And here let me record our appreciation to my predecessors, Professor Kasozi, who secured the land, and Professor Opuda, who saw to it that the construction is done and completed well. The process of constructing the main office block has started with the development of architectural designs. The third achievement is development of a quality assurance framework. We put in place a higher education quality assurance framework for universities and other tertiary institutions. The relevant instruments and regulations are used by Nche to guide and monitor the performance of institutions. But institutions also use them for self-assessment. We have standards, we have guidelines, and we have capacity indicators against which quality of institutions and of programs is assessed. These have been set. The fourth achievement is increasing access to higher education. In the year 2003, when the council started its operations, there were 4 public universities. These were Makerere, Mbarara, Gulu, and Chambogo. There were 7 private universities and 56 other tertiary institutions. I'm pleased to report, Your Excellency, that 20 years later, National Council for Higher Education has accredited a total of 265 higher education institutions. And these are located in different parts of the country. They include 10 public universities, 1 university with a separate act, that is the Islamic University in Uganda, 47 private universities, 24 other degree awarding institutions, and 183 other tertiary institutions. This increase in the number of institutions has enabled more eligible students access higher education. The fifth is increase in the student enrollment. In the year 2003, the student enrollment in higher education institutions was about 80,000, and the number now is over 270,000 students in higher education institutions. The sixth achievement is the increase in academic and professional programs. When National Council started its work, there were about 500 programs being offered in institutions. Today, Nche has accredited over 500 academic and professional programs, and 37% of these programs are science-based. The 63% are arts and humanities. The seventh achievement is dissemination of information. The Act requires Nche to collect and disseminate information on higher education for the benefit of the public. We have done this through higher education exhibitions. Your Excellency, today we put on a mini exhibition to show you a little bit of what the institutions showcase at the major exhibitions. We also disseminate information through conferences. So far, we have held 13 annual higher education exhibitions and 4 annual higher education conferences. Information is also disseminated using our website. The eighth achievement is visibility of Nche. The visibility of Nche has been enhanced. The public used to know Nche mostly during election periods. Nche has now repositioned itself within the education subsector and is very visible. The ninth achievement is advising the government on matters of higher education. Section 5, C and P require National Council for Higher Education to advise the minister and government on matters pertaining to higher education. In this regard, Nche has played a pivotal role in advising the government to establish public higher education institutions. After we have completed our appointment, our assessment of the fitness of purpose of institutions, we then recommend to the Honourable Minister to proceed with the process of establishing a public institution. The number of public universities, for instance, increased from the 4 that the council found on the ground to 10. In addition, Nche proposed, as advised to government, Nche proposed the establishment of the Higher Education Students Financing Body, and that resulted into the creation of the present-day Higher Education Students Financing Board, which has supported a lot of disadvantaged students who would not have achieved higher education. We have also advised on having policies on gender as well as sexual harassment. These are among those areas where National Council has advised. The 10th achievement is promotion of research and innovation. Nche publishes the Uganda Higher Education Review Journal, where academicians and other researchers publish peer-reviewed and current research on higher education. The journal was relaunched in March of 2020 after 8 years of dormancy, and so far 11 issues have been published. The 11th achievement is monitoring and guidance of institutions. Nche has continued to regularly monitor institutions as per Section 5G of the Act, and in this respect, we have been able to guide institutions to move from one level to another. Especially private institutions start at the level of obtaining a letter of interim authority, which authorizes them to start preparing to start a university. And when they are ready to apply to start a university, they apply for a provisional license. The letter of interim authority is held for a maximum of 3 years. But universities can, if they are ready before that, they can apply to go to the next level. And the institutions that are provisionally licensed may proceed to grant of a charter if they satisfy the requirements. That's what I meant by saying we support them to move from one level to another. And through the guidance, the quality of many institutions has improved. Also, as a result of this monitoring, non-compliant institutions have been identified, and some have had their licenses revoked. The 12th achievement, Your Excellency, is digitalization of higher education in the country. The number of activities or number of programs that we have used to do this. The first one is the institution of the Integrated Management Information System, IMIS. We are very grateful to the Ministry of Education and Sports that through the African Development Bank funded project, the Higher Education, Science and Technology project, National Council for Higher Education was able to institute the Integrated Management Information System, IMIS. As a result, the Council has digitalized all its operations. Higher education institutions are now able to submit applications online, They can also track their applications to check on the status and progress through the available digital services, such as equating qualifications, program accreditation, and institutional licensing. This EMIS has transformed the way Nche delivers services to the public. The EMIS has also enabled Nche to have a robust data center, and the system is in addition used to disseminate information. Another platform which has contributed to digitalization of higher education is the Nche URA payment platform. In collaboration with URA, Nche has established the Nche URA payment integrated platform. This will enable Nche boost its non-taxable revenue, NTR, collection by URA. Our stakeholders will be able to pay to URA all the Nche collections at the comfort of their homes through different payment modes. Under digitalization, we are also implementing the open distance and electronic learning system, that is ODEL. In May 2020, Nche developed and issued guidelines for the emergency ODEL mode of delivery. And this was to ensure continuity of teaching and learning during the COVID-19 pandemic lockdowns. However, post-COVID period, institutions are now required to develop programs in conformity with minimum standards for ODEL that had been issued in August 2019, prior to the advent of the pandemic. A number of institutions have developed such programs. Some institutions have got accredited to run full ODEL as a mode of delivery of their programs. The fourth platform for digitalization has been the development of a virtual higher education platform. In 2021, Nche developed the virtual higher education platform, and this enabled higher education institutions to exhibit and showcase their innovations and research technologies during the COVID-19 pandemic lockdowns. Your Excellency, the lockdown came on the eve of our annual exhibition. Some institutions had already traveled with their exhibits to Kampala, and thereafter we are stuck because there was no way the exhibitions could be held. So that time we had to cancel, and along the way we thought of ways of continuing to do that even during the lockdown or lockdowns. The stakeholders accessed the platform anytime and interacted with the institutions or exhibitors within the e-booths via chat, Zoom, and other communication channels. And this was the first ever virtual higher education exhibition in Uganda. It was also possible to use e-platforms to hold virtual conferences. The 13th achievement are the survey reports on higher education in Uganda. Your Excellency, you've seen some of them. The National Council for Higher Education has continued to carry out surveys on higher education in Uganda. The recommendations from these surveys have been used by government to formulate policies and guidelines on higher education, and such policies or programs is the digital agenda of the Ministry of Education and Sports. National Council for Education participated actively in that, in the development of the agenda. The council was represented by our Director of ICT Research and Innovation, Dr. Nora Mulira. If she could stand up for recognition. Wherever she is. The findings of the surveys are published in annual reports. And such reports include the state of higher education in Uganda. This is published annually. We also have tracer study reports on various programs. There have also been reports following surveys on the levels of PhD outputs in institutions, as well as on the state of implementation of STEM and STAY in Uganda. The 14th achievement has been recognition and equating of qualifications. Section 5K of the Act mandates Nche to equate all academic and professional qualifications obtained from elsewhere to determine their equivalence to those awarded by Ugandan institutions. In addition to this function, under the electoral laws of Uganda, Nche was given another function of issuing certificates of equivalence to persons aspiring for political positions, as defined in the Presidential Elections Act 2005, the Parliamentary Elections Act 2005, and the Local Government Act. We have so far handled 4 elections, or rather election cycles, that is of 2006, 2011, 2011, 2016, and 2021. Your Excellency, we are waiting for 2026. The 15th achievement is acquisition of a vote status. For a long time, the National Council for Higher Education was under subvention, but Nche was granted a vote starting with the financial year 2021-2022. This has led to raising of the budget slightly from what we used to receive, while still under subvention. So those are some what I call key achievements. I'll also move to areas that require intervention of government. Your Excellency, despite the achievements registered over the 20 years as highlighted, Nche uses to highlight some of the areas that require government intervention. One of them is the need to control admissions into higher education institutions through the establishment of a central admissions system. Such a system was provided for in NDP 3. So what is required is its implementation. The second area is low levels of research outputs in institutions, majorly due to limited funding. This situation necessitates establishment of a National Research and Innovation Fund, which was also provided for in NDP 3 but has not been implemented. The third area is the low level of PhD outputs in institutions compared to the high demand. And this requires establishment of a national PhD training program. Your Excellency, as we talk about the past, on such a day we need to talk about the future. Permit me to highlight some key planned activities. In the current strategic planning cycle and beyond, Nche has positioned ICT as a mandatory strategic tool for regulation, teaching, learning, and research. We aim to promote ICT in all functions of Nche as well as the higher education institutions. The second future activity is that we shall continue, as per the policy of government, to prioritize STEM and stay in program and institutional accreditation so as to reduce and eventually eliminate the balance. Because as you may recall, I mentioned that 37% of programs are science-based and the rest are arts and humanities. The third activity is to review the instruments and regulations to incorporate current developments and trends and further strengthen the quality assurance function of the Council. And here we intend also to factor in the incorporation of competences in all the training that goes on in higher education institutions. The fourth is finalization of the development of the research and innovation regulatory framework for higher education. This one is already under development. Fifth, Nche will continue working with the National Planning Authority to actualize the establishment of the National PhD program under the Human Resource Training Program. Sixth is infrastructure development. We plan to construct the Nche headquarter block to provide for a number of facilities like e-learning labs, a research hub, a data center, a state-of-the-art conference facility, as well as office space. 7, Nche will work with the Ministry of Education and Sports towards amendment of the Act. 8, we are in the process of developing guidelines for acceptable and responsible access and use of digital materials in higher education, and this is intended to protect users, especially students, from potential negative effects of the internet within the learning environment. We conceived, or rather we started on this activity following the guidance by the Minister of Education and Sports, Mama Janet Museveni, when she launched the celebrations on the 9th. And Mama, we are responding to this, and these guidelines we expect should be out in a few months. I would like to, on behalf of Council, to record appreciation. I would like to appreciate government for the support to Nche, without which it would not have been able to execute its mandate. And in a special way, we thank Your Excellency for the support and the guidance in the last 20 years. The First Lady and Honorable Minister of Education and Sports has continued to support us, to guide us, and she has been particularly very supportive in securing increased funding, for which we are grateful. We have also received various forms of support from the ministry as a whole, from the family of the Ministry of Education and Sports, from ministers of state, from the permanent secretary, and officers, senior officers and other officers in the ministry, and we are very grateful for this. We have received support from the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. They continue to support Nche in providing funds. We appreciate the Attorney General for consistently and continuously supporting us in matters that relate to courts, in matters where we have to gazette the institutions. We normally have to seek guidance before we take action, or when there is chartering of institutions. I wish to sincerely thank the chairperson, Professor Erika Tunguka, and the vice chairperson, Professor Kwesiga, and members of the council for the guidance given to management in the execution of their duties. We thank you very much. Permit me to acknowledge with appreciation the commitment of colleagues in management and the staff, collectively referred to or called the Nche family. That commitment has enabled Nche to attain the achievements I have highlighted and the various contributions towards transforming higher education. Permit me first of all to request members of management led by the Deputy Executive Director, Dr. Kagume, to stand up for recognition. And all staff, all other members of the Nche family, please stand up for recognition. Appreciation is also due to our development partners over time for their contributions to Nche's achievements. I would like in particular to thank the following: the Rockefeller Foundation, Ford Foundation, the Carnegie Foundation, Enabel, the International Labour Organization, Forum for African Women Educationalists, FAWE, and SEED Global Health. We thank you very much. I thank the institutions, the higher education institutions, and more particularly the former and current vice chancellors and principals and their teams for the many contributions towards the growth of higher education in the country. And I would like to request former vice chancellors, former principals, current vice chancellors, current principals, please stand up for recognition, wherever you are. We are grateful to the media fraternity for providing necessary publicity and enhancing the visibility of Nche. They are already standing, so please recognize them. The organizing committee, headed by the Deputy Executive Director, Reverend Canon Dr. Alex Kagume, has worked hard to ensure success of these functions. I thank the committee for a job well done. And lastly, I thank all of you, our esteemed invited guests, who have come from all walks of life to attend this function. In conclusion, Your Excellency, I wish on behalf of the Nche family to assure you that we are committed to contributing towards the achievement of the Uganda Vision 2040, accelerating Uganda's socio-economic transformation, as well as the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Thank you very much for your attention. It's now my pleasure to invite our Chairperson of Council, Professor Eli Katunguka, to make his remarks. Professor Katunguka.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Uganda, the First Lady and Honorable Minister of Education and Sports, Honorable Ministers who are present, Honorable Members of Parliament, the former ministers present, the heads of government departments and agencies, Vice Chancellors and Principals of higher education institutions, the senior staff of the Ministry of Education and Sports. I'm sorry, I skipped the Permanent Secretary, Minister of Education and Sports, staff of the National Council for Higher Education, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. Your Excellency, I want to take this opportunity to welcome you to this historic occasion when we are celebrating 20 years of service as National Council for Higher Education. I want to thank you for sparing time to come and grace this occasion. In the same spirit, I want to thank the First Lady and Honorable Minister of Education and Sports, Mama Janet Museveni, for coming to be part of this historic event. Your Excellency, allow me now to recognize the current council members with whom we perform our mandated functions as per the Universities and Other Tertiary Institutions Act. The Vice Chairperson of the Council is Professor Joy Kwesiga, the Vice Chancellor Kabale University, and may I now request all members of Council to stand up for recognition. Members of Council, please. Thank you. Your Excellency, that's the formidable team that pretends over matters of higher education regulation in this country. Allow me also to recognize the past two councils. The first council was chaired by Professor Frederick Kayanja, who is amongst us, and the second council was chaired by Professor Pen Moginyeko. We recognize their tireless efforts at the initial and development stages of the National Council for Higher Education. I wish to thank the Executive Director, Professor Mero Kokor, and the whole management team at the National Council for Higher Education for a job well done over the years. They have shown that they are a formidable team and they work well with the Council. Your Excellency, as Council, we are very grateful to government through the Ministry of Education and Sports for the continued financial support and guidance to Council and management of Nche. I also want to thank the NRM government under your wise leadership, Your Excellency, that developed policies to allow many players to come into provision of higher education services. This has seen a marked increase in both public and private tertiary institutions and universities, as the Executive Director has elaborated. Because of this marked expansion, we believe that new modalities of regulating these institutions need to come in place for efficient and effective regulation. The Executive Director has enumerated many achievements and future plans, and I do not want to repeat them. But allow me to thank you, Your Excellency, for your consistent message for us to focus on promotion of science and technology in higher education institutions. The Higher Education Science and Technology Project, which was running from 2015 to 2020, laid a solid foundation by renovating many workshops and laboratories and providing state-of-the-art scientific equipment to all public universities. However, these institutions face human resource gaps that limit the utilization of the acquired equipment. In addition, higher education institutions are finding it difficult to recruit and retain senior personnel at senior lecturer and professorial levels to teach science, engineering, and architecture programs, because the private sector pays them much better. Your Excellency, many faculties of engineering and architecture are greatly understaffed because we cannot retain these people in universities. My appeal to you, Your Excellency, is to consider an affirmative action to recruit and retain these cadres of staff, in addition to recruiting technicians to manage science and engineering workshops and laboratories in higher education institutions. Your Excellency, when we have equipment without technicians, that equipment will not be used, but the worst thing that can happen, it will start disappearing one by one. I wish to pay tribute to the private institutions that teach health-related programs like medicine, pharmacy, dentistry, and those other institutions that teach engineering and architecture programs for their heavy investment, for we are well aware that teaching these programs is very expensive. Your Excellency, the National Council for Higher Education was established under the Universities and Other Tertiary Institutions Act 2001, as amended in 2003 and 2006. A number of changes have taken place in the education landscape, with many emerging issues within the higher education subsector. However, I regret to inform you that the Act as it stands today does not address these changes, and it therefore needs to be amended to match the current trends of higher education in the country, and also incorporate a number of emerging issues. Proposals to this effect have been submitted to the Minister of Education and Sports, and we await a response. The Executive Director has mentioned that National Council for Education has grown in the staffing numbers. However, given the wide mandate of the Council, the staffing of 56 as of today, out of approved 125 staff, puts our staff levels at 44.4%, which is below the required standards. The main challenges here are the wage bill restrictions with the ceilings, which do not allow any recruitment. Your Excellency, we shall appeal to you for some intervention to address this challenge. Your Excellency, as I conclude, I want to thank you personally for appointing me to chair the National Council for Higher Education. And as you have heard, numerous achievements have been registered and a lot of planned activities are underway. We are committed to continue serving the National Council for Higher Education and this country to achieve more. Lastly, to all our invited guests, I want to thank you for listening to me, and may God bless each one of you as we celebrate 20 years of National Council for Higher Education. I thank you.
Your Excellency, I think Professor Mero Kwakor and Professor Erwacha deserve a bigger crowd. And I can assure you, Excellency, where you have Professor Katunguka with his counsel and Professor Mero Kwakor, I can assure you, Honorable Minister of Education and our First Lady, she has the best team. You are assured, your vision, your ideas, your philosophy is well understood. We want to thank you for giving us such a wonderful people. We don't take them for granted. Your Excellency, at this moment, there are a number of people who would humbly request that you recognize, but we know there are quite many, because 20 years are quite many, that we shall also humbly request that after you recognize the first group, the First Lady and Minister of Education also, we humbly request her to recognize some other group. Then we shall also request humbly Honorable Peter Ogwang, who is also here with us, Minister of State, also to recognize another group, if Your Excellency you allow. And in a representative capacity, the first group, we shall request Professor, the first chairperson of council, to represent it, and the rest, when we read, you will be able to stand here for His Excellencies to note you, and only one person per group will be able to, with the guidance of protocol, to be recognized on our behalf. But all our praise and recognition, Your Excellency, are all here, if you wish. Yeah. You know, when you're master of ceremony, you can make some serious issues now. Can I, Your Excellency, allow that we recognize Professor Ian Bantubanu Kayanja as the former and founding chairperson of National Council 203-212. He offered strategic direction, and you cannot talk of high education without Professor Kayanja. Professor. We further commend, I think we shall request that he come this side, and yes, he represents us, and he'll be followed quickly by Professor Nche Moji as the second chairperson, the former Vice Chancellor of Guru University. Professor Erika Tunguka Rwachaya as the third chairperson, and for supporting National Council in the current term. In the group, we have Professor ABK Kasozi, represented by Susan. The rest of the members, protocol need to come here. Onwe Kayanja is going. As a pioneer ED, as a person who started the National Council. The next person is Professor Opuda Asibo John, as the second executive director, was very instrumental in mobilizing funds for construction of the National Council Secretariat. Professor Mary J.N. Okwakor, the wonderful lady, the third executive director to present. She has lobbied for the vote, increased funding, rebranding, increased staff. We shall also recognize Elizabeth Gabona. At the time of National Council, she was an assistant commission at the Ministry of Education. She was responsible as a council member. In that group, which have been recognized, Ambassador Yeko Wantoni Achato served as a commission and also the commission. Yes, yes. Nawangwe. In that group, there is Fene Birungi, who works for this. Yes, we are reading. Yes. In that group, we have Mr. Fene Birungi, who worked as executive director, assistant executive director. No, Mama, it's to come. Not yet, still Mzee. Mama hasn't started. Then we have Professor FX Robanga. He was the permanent secretary, Minister of Education, and he was instrumental in allocating land to the National Council. In that same group, we have Dr. Alex Kagume, Third Deputy Executive Director. We have Professor Moses Gorora as the second Executive Director and worked at the University Council. Dr. Pamela Tibishira Kalyegira she's now the chairperson of the Rural Reform Commission. Professor Pius Kokswera Achang served council for 11 years, is now the Vice Chancellor of Mountains of the Moon. And Dr. Nora Mulira, Director for Research. You know the problem, they are big stuff. They phone for mama. And for what? Yes. That's what I'm going to do. Because I'll see read everybody. He is getting up. Becca. Thank you, thank you. Now, the next group that will be recognized by Minister of State, and I'm going to Minister of State. We are going to recognize institutions first that have made a contribution, and they will be represented by Professor Barnabas Nawangwe, and that includes Makerere University for higher education, transformation as a special recognition. Yes, yes, yes. Now the team will be led by Professor Barnabas Nawangwe, Professor Mushenjezi of Uganda Christian University as the first chartered university, Your Excellency. The first private university in Uganda to be represented by Reverend Canon Professor Olivia Nasaka Banja and H-Ray Professor Michael Kawoya and Makerere Business Institute. Now, there are people I read and who have not gone, and who are going to be recognized by the Honorable Minister. And the pregs are there, the team. I have the people I need to read again. And Your Excellency, I can request the Minister of State to remain there. His Excellency has accepted to come near them. We thank you, Your Excellency. We thank you, we thank you, we thank you, we thank you. Wow, we thank you, we thank you. Now, I request Your Excellency, with the guidance of protocol, that you can rest then the Minister remains, and I request the other team that I had led by Professor Achang, former Permanent Secretary FX Rubanga, Ambassador Chato, Mr. Birungi, Fene, and I request Mary to come and Maria to come and take over this other group. Dr. Pamela, Dr. Nora Murira, Reverend Canon Alex Kagume, Stella Rere, Abdul Karim, and you read for me the two.
There is a group that is going to be recognized by the Honorable Minister Ogwang. These are long-term serving officers of the National Council and include Mr. Arthur Babumuguzi, who has been the MC for the day, Mr. Soma Emmanuel, Dr. Martin Elemaut Oskei, Madam Harriet Kavuka, Mr. John Mike Wanyama, Mr. George Ebine, Mr. Patrick Wonyal, and Mr. Ronald Kasolo. Please come up for recognition by the Honorable Minister. Okay. Thank you for serving the National Council, and we look forward to your continued service. Please move very fast. Those whose names I've read, please move very fast.
Your Excellency, we want to thank you. And among the people appreciated here, I'm among the people who have worked here for 20 years at the National Council in charge of finances. And National Council, as Mama can say, have been one of the institutions we are proud of under our leadership, and I've been a head of finance, Your Excellency. And I come from Buweju. At this moment, I want to request current performers to give us a 5-minute presentation, a 3-minute presentation as the purpose. Yeah, thank you, current performers. Your Excellency, I want to take this singular honor and opportunity on behalf of the National Council on the 20 years anniversary celebration to invite the First Lady and the Minister of Education and Sports. And Your Excellency, she's your host today in higher education to make her remarks. Mama.
Excellency, the President of the Republic of Uganda, honorable ministers present here, honorable members of parliament, if there are any here, heads of diplomatic missions, former national leaders, distinguished guests, the chairperson of the National Council for Higher Education, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to you all. Now, as we gather here today, we thank God for the 20 years that the National Council for Higher Education has been in existence as an agency of the Ministry of Education and Sports. Therefore, I join the many people that are rejoicing with National Council for Higher Education upon this milestone. Congratulations to you. However, we must ask ourselves now what we see as this establishment marks 20 years of its life. What has it done to make Uganda's education better and more transformative for our society? That is the question that would give our celebration the strength and the worthy feeling. Let me first applaud each one of the men and women who came before me as leaders of this sector under the NRM government. I want to remind you of those. They are not, unfortunately, not here today to be recognized as we did with those that led Nche, but I just want to remind you of them by name, who creatively shaped the role of regulation of higher education in this country one after another. Those leaders are the late Honorable Joash Mayanja Nkanji, Honorable Amanya Mshega, the late Professor Apollo Nsibambi, Professor Kidu Makubuya, Honorable Geraldine Bitamazire, my immediate predecessor, Her Excellency, the Vice President Jessica Lupo, their ministers of state and technical teams. All these people who have come before the current generation of leaders in this sector have played a key role in birthing and nurturing this youthful institution called the National Council for Higher Education. Therefore, in a way, institutions do behave like living organisms. Human beings are born, they are then nurtured to survive the foundational years of life and childhood. They become adolescents and youth full of zeal. Ultimately, the desire is that they grow into responsible adults that fulfill the purpose for which God let them be here on earth. So these human-made institutions also take a similar path. Firstly, institutions are also born by being established. For the case of Nche, it was born out of the Universities and Other Tertiary Institutions Act, 2001, as you heard Professor Okwakol inform us. Secondly, God created human beings and gave them the delegated responsibility of being stewards of his creation here on earth. Well, similarly, Nche was established to be a steward of the higher education subsector on behalf of the Ministry of Education and Sports. So Nche has the freedom to do what it does, but it is still accountable to the ministry that established it. Therefore, when we launched the 20 years anniversary celebrations for Nche in March this year, we were also, in a way, looking at ourselves as a government to reflect on the achievements attained through the work of National Council for Higher Education. Thirdly, just like human beings attain physical and mental growth, so do institutions. Nche started off with 4 employees 20 years ago, as again you heard from Professor Okwakor, and now has more than 50 staff to help the agency carry out its mandate. And I know that they are trying to find the funding that would enable them to employ more personnel. Fourthly, as human beings attain physical and mental maturity, responsibilities also increase. As you have already heard, there were 4 public and 7 private universities, plus 56 other tertiary institutions that the young Nche was responsible for at the time of establishment. But right now, that number has grown to 265, as you have heard again from Professor Kwakor's speech. So as we celebrate these 20 years of National Council for Higher Education's existence, we are also taking stock of the leaps that the higher education subsector has done. The quantitative increase from 67 higher education institutions 20 years ago to 265 right now is a testament that the government has created an environment that fosters growth. This shows that Nche's work has increased fourfold to monitor and authorize that many higher education institutions to operate. Your Excellency, as National Council for Higher Education stands at the gate setting off for the next 20 years, it needs to position itself as a catalyst for the transformation of the higher education system in Uganda to make our country a higher education hub for the East African region, and that is possible. However, this possibility, we must remind ourselves, should not just mean the multiplication of universities in quantity alone. The essence of this multiplication should be evident in the quality and excellence of our students' qualifications and competitiveness in the region. The government has endeavored to answer the question of access to higher education by establishing more public universities. The liberalization of the education sector has also widened opportunities by allowing the private sector to further increase access to higher education through establishing institutions of higher learning. The challenge that Nche should address now is the quality of higher education being offered in these institutions, especially the science and technology programs. Therefore, Nche must ensure that the programs and courses offered in both public and private higher education institutions do not vary in quality. Because sometimes we tend to give excuses if the quality of some education institutions are not good. We start to give excuses of the fact that that is a private university. But that should not make any difference in our universities, whether public or private. All must be excellent programs and qualifications. That is when the education hub will truly be meaningful and significant. The higher education system should become relevant to the society it is operating in by rightly diagnosing the problems in society and their root causes before prescribing remedies and interventions. This is the only way higher education becomes the driver of socio-economic change. In addition, the higher education system should be seen to have a social purpose and not mere academic intent. The National Council for Higher Education should guide our higher education institutions in periodically measuring the relevance they are having in their community, where they are situated. Can students and academic faculty engage more in solving common problems with the institutions surrounding the community? Lastly, our higher education system must be aggressive and ambitious enough in integrating ICTs in the pedagogical approaches to learning. This will impact the much required skills and abilities in students as they go out into the world of work. When higher education becomes fully integrated with ICTs in pedagogical approaches, the effects will naturally trickle down into the other subsectors of the education system. On behalf of the Ministry of Education and Sports, I'd like now to congratulate the chairperson and members of the National Council for Higher Education, the management and staff on this milestone of 20 years of regulating higher education in Uganda. Your Excellency, as a ministry, we are committed to continuous improvement of the policy and legal regime that enables effective regulation of the higher education subsector. The policy that is being developed shall place our higher education system on the path of alignment and relevance to our society and the demands in the 21st century world of work. I want to thank you for listening to me, and God bless you. I now invite our President to address this audience. Thank you.
Okay, sit down, please. Thank you. The Honorable Minister of Education and Sports, the other ministers, the chairperson of the council, executive director, members of the council, and the other distinguished invited persons who are here today. First of all, I congratulate the council on their 20th anniversary. Thank you, congratulations. And I want to thank the ministers and the managers, the leaders of the council who have shepherded it all this time. We salute them. The Council for Higher Education, which will be building on what the lower education has imparted in the young people, in my view, should be clear about its historical role. Modern education is, in my view, about, especially the higher one, is about two things. Number one, understanding nature and understanding the natural laws of nature. This is what you call science. But actually, these are natural laws. Gravity, light, sound, electrons, bonding of molecules to form compounds. This is nature. So you should be very clear, especially because sometimes the mystification of knowledge can confuse oneself, but also even people who are learning from you. But if you are clear, like on the side of science, that really we are basically talking about understanding nature and its natural laws and how they can help man in solving one or the other problem, or even creating problems for society. Because some people use natural laws to create problems for society. The societies which understood gunpowder before we did created a lot of problems for us. For them, they understood the simple natural characteristic of how solids or liquids, some solids or liquids or powders in a confined space, when they are converted to gas, they create pressure which expels what we call a projectile. And that's how you kill people. Because gas has got the natural characteristic of expansion. Gases expand. In a confined space, therefore, they create that pressure which expels the bullet. Those who understood this before us were able to come and cause so much trouble here in the world. When you hear slave trade, all that was because of the simple problem, colonialism, because we lacked the ability to understand that science quickly. Nuclear energy, the same problem. So therefore, you, the managers of education in general, and especially the higher ones, the higher management, which is your job, should be clear about that point. Because like when I was talking with my young people there, say ICT. I said, what is ICT? ICT. This other one, artificial intelligence. What is it exactly? Is it not electrons? How they move around and you make them do work, and how you manipulate them. Yes, but we import them. We import. You import. If you are importing, then you are not yet free. You must learn, you must go deeper and excite the electrons yourselves independently. So, because that's what we did when we went to the bush. We didn't just copy what these people were doing. We did our own things. And that's how we were able to become formidable, because nobody could control us. So therefore, number one, especially for higher education, is, in my view, you can later on, when we have time, you can guide me, say, no, you are mistaken here, you can help me. But from what I've been watching, understanding nature and its laws and using them to solve problems is one very important part of education. The lower education, of course, includes acquiring the basics, reading, writing, counting, and so on. But also you get the introduction to the sciences, even in the lower schools. Then the second part is understanding society and evolution of man. That is now for the social scientists. How this man has been evolving in society as a hunter-gatherer, then learning how to domesticate some crops, some wild seeds. Instead of following them in the bush, you bring them home and you tame them, you plant them deliberately. Then my tribe, many years ago, they learned how to domesticate animals. Actually, they don't call them animals. If you say a cow is an animal, he will fight you. Because a cow is a cow. Nche. It can't be a nyamweshwa. You can see how advanced they are. Even in Uganda, I'm sure you cannot say ensoro into ensoro. You can see how the Europeans are still backward. They call a cow an animal. I find it very offended when they say animals. Animals, these are not animals, these are cows. Yeah? So you can see how these societies were evolving, even language evolving, invention of iron ore, the use of iron tools, and so on. So I think if you get clear, because like for instance, we still have hunter-gatherers here in Africa. The Batwa, the Pygmies in the forest, they have not yet learned the science of domesticating crops or domesticating animals. They think it is a waste of time. They think it is better to remain in the forest gathering honey and catching some wild animals. And then the society, how it evolved. Because like here, you still have, when you hear people talking of landlords, Wetaka, Nowechibanja, you are still talking of a feudal arrangement. We have not gone to the stage of capitalism. Still 600 years behind. So therefore, my suggestion is that when we are managing education, we should not mystify it. Go to the basics and make sure that our students really understand the basics. And the whole, I would call it like enlightenment. Because part of the problem of Africa was remaining in superstition when other parts of the world had moved a bit in the area of natural science. They had understood natural science better than us when we were still in the issue of, in the area of superstition. That man, I think he's called Louis Pasteur, the one who saw the first microbe, I think, under the microscope. When did he do that? Can somebody help me? One of the scientists, come and help me, please. On the microphone there. Louis Pasteur, the Frenchman. I get this information from my computer from long ago. Louis Pasteur, if you don't know, check on your internet, they will tell you. Who would help us about Louis Pasteur? We don't have doctors here. Oh, they are disturbing Okuda is the one going to. What are all these young boys doing? Young girls. There's a young girl there. Okuda, you sit down. Let them not disturb you. Let the young children do it. There's a girl who stood there. Run. This one here. Sit, Professor Okuda. Let these children do it. You sit down.
Yeah, Louis Pasteur pioneered the study of molecules.
Of?
Molecules.
Molecules.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And discovered that microorganisms cause fermentation and disease.
Microorganisms.
Yes.
Which year was it?
It was in 1962.
No.
Sorry.
1862. 1862.
Yes.
Okay. Sit down. What's your name?
Zawede Patricia.
Goretti?
Zawede Patricia from Cavendish University, Uganda.
Zawede.
Patricia.
Ka?
Patricia.
Patricia.
Yes.
Zawede.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Zawede. Go to Yambe Munange. Okay, sit down. Now, you can hear Louis Pasteur, 1862. This is more than 150 years now, was able to see that there are organisms that we are not able to see with our eyes. 150 years ago. Now, some about 15 years ago, I went back to the Ruero Triangle, my area of operation. And I was walking. I decided to pass in the village of Nakaziwa. We had our chairman there. He was called Konia. He was a very enlightened man in the village. The most, I would say, educated in the village. Maybe he went up to P6 or something like that. So I found him there, seated with a swollen leg. Hey, Konia, Obadichi. Ntibandoze. Okuloze? Ntibantege talo. That some, who can tell us about a talo? A talo wanang. Sagara wakadewa no kuwata wanya. I wanted the young ones. A talo, what is a talo? Come and tell us. Come on the microphone.
Your Excellency, I'm Mike Katongole, a master's student of bioinformatics.
Katongole, student of?
Makerere, I'm doing masters in bioinformatics.
Masters in what?
Bioinformatics.
Informatics.
Yes.
Okay.
My auntie died of a talo, I was told.
Your father died?
My auntie.
Your auntie?
In 1999.
1999, yes.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
So in my second year, in microbiology class in MUST, I found out that a talo was an infection of a bacteria called Clostridium perfringens. It resides in the soils, in the villages, below areas where oxygen can reach. So our traditional farmers, when they are farming without gumboots, they dig soil onto their feet, which has previously cut with wounds. So this bacteria enters their legs, and it leads to swelling. Unfortunately, Clostridium perfringens toxins, so far on the market, they have not yet got antibacterials for them because they are rare infections in Europe, so no one is willing to invest in that research. We call them orphan diseases. So you can't find a talo in Kampala.
But it can be killed by antibiotics.
Previous antibiotics can kill them, but unfortunately, previously, people reach hospitals when it is too late, when they have got systemic infection. So they will die, and they say when you have a talo and you are injected with a penicillin, you die. So they would prefer local herbs.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Excellency.
Now, Katongere is a bio something.
Informatician.
Let's get a doctor to help us, because I was told, because when I was walking and they told me the Konia told me that Bambuloze etalo, I had my doctor who were working with me. I said, what's this? They told me that this is a simple bacterial infection, that they call it cellulitis. That the disease is called cellulitis. So which doctor can tell us now? A young doctor, don't disturb people like Okuda, old men. Katuumuleko, abakadde.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I'm Dr. Asman Lukwago. I'm a physician.
Dr. who?
Lukwago Asman.
Lukwago.
Yes.
Very good.
Cellulitis means inflammation of the tissue. But the common consequence of that infection of the bacteria is to cause that inflammation. That's why it is called cellulitis. So what the colleague had described was
is the cause.
Exactly, the bacteria, how it enters into the body, but the consequence on that part of the body that is affected is inflammation, intense inflammation, and that's what we call cellulitis.
And what is the cure? Because I treated Lukwago.
Yes.
I treated Cornea.
Yes. So the cure, because many bacteria actually cause cellulitis. It's not only the other bacteria which is saying, even other bacteria that are available. In fact, African traditionally know the sources of those bacteria, and they tend to place them strategically where someone can be injured and they enter his body. So they call it witchcraft, but actually when it is a biological process. So immediately you step on them, they can like mix blood, get some rotting animals, and they mix them. So the other aspect of like bewitching is not really underrated.
They can be deliberately brought nearby.
Exactly, it is like a biological weapon. You prepare a concoction so that when someone steps on it, and these are bacteria which rapidly spread, they are kept into blood, and we call it culturing them. When you culture, you put bacteria into a medium so that they multiply rapidly. So someone stepping on them and is injured at the same time makes those bacteria access the body, and this results into a quick infection and inflammation, swelling, and then we call it cellulitis. But the toxins which are liberated, if the patient doesn't rush to the hospital first, may paralyze other organs like the heart, the brain. Of course, when the patients are supported with the fluids, blood, they usually survive. But the antibiotics usually work on such a bacteria, Your Excellency.
But the bacteria can kill it if you do it on time.
The antibiotic?
The antibiotics?
Yeah, the antibiotics kill them.
Yes.
And if combined with supportive treatment, even Clostridium, the patient will survive. You know, the human body depends on supporting. If the cells are dying, or if the blood is like becoming diluted and your pressure is falling, then we give you more fluids. We can give you blood, as we also give you antibiotics to kill the new bacteria that come up. And patients usually survive.
So it is curable?
Yeah, it's curable. It is perfectly curable, and we have had such a challenges when we treat patients. Others, especially like diabetic, when they come with their taro, you have to bargain and even sign and say, if he dies, I will take responsibility. Because the relatives will always refuse the antibiotics. So that is an attitude which has grown a long time. And I think through health education, some of them accept.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Kwame.
You are welcome, Your Excellency.
Now, so you can see, 1862, Louis Pasteur discovered that there were organisms that we cannot see with our eyes, which are around us. Some are good, like the ones that were causing fermentation, but some are bad. But here, where I was, chairman of the National Resistance Movement, this must have been like 2000 there, like 20 years ago, calling on my chairman, my village chairman, who is suffering from invasion by some microbes, and he doesn't know that there is a medical answer to that. And his leg was up, ready to, I don't know what he was planning to do, Ntibandoze. But, and then when I called my doctor, immediately the person is cured. So you can see that you, the education experts, now on the side of social science, you must do some work for people to stop believing in witchcraft, in superstition, and believing more in natural science. That there are causes, and the natural science is everywhere. Like when you put the bananas in the ground to ripen, it is those bacteria which ripen those bananas, amabide. But I have actually not asked our people what they think ripens. They think it is a bugumu. To a bugumu. But then why does the ripe banana ripen even when it is on the tree? So that disconnection among African people, it's not only African people, even the others. For instance, in the Middle Ages, in Europe, people were believing in the same superstitions. But for them, they have moved. From the time of Louis Pasteur, they started moving away. But your people here are stuck in that non-science way of life. Non-science way of life. And really, I don't know how you assess that, because I find this a big problem. To have a society that is still superstition-oriented. How, on the side of social science, how are you going to handle that? Because this is part of, I think in other places they called it enlightenment. How can you build an enlightened society? Society that believes in science, in God, because also there's another danger. There are others who said with science there's no God. No. Because here I'm talking about you understanding the natural laws. But who created those natural laws? This is where I did not agree with some people in the universities. They were saying, with science, there's no God. Gravity, you talk of gravity, but who created it? Who created all these, the earth, that the earth is the one pulling me down, but who created the earth? But that's another issue. That one our battle between the atheists and the scientists and the ones who believe in God, that one we can handle. But the first problem we have is having a society which is disconnected with natural science and is stuck in superstition. You can think about, I don't know whether you have ever thought about it. If you have not, you think about it. Because it's all right to have, a few of us who are here, who know. But how about those millions in the village who still believe in superstition? And because of that, they make a lot of, they suffer a lot of losses. So therefore, in my view, the challenge of education in a society like this one are those two. On the side of science, it is understanding that science is essential about nature and its laws, and how they can be used positively or negatively. Because, for instance, now, when we are talking of biotechnology can be used to do good things, but it can also be used to what some of them are thinking about is how to discover a disease, a germ which can kill only Africans because of their genetic makeup and not other people. Have a biogenetic weapon. And that's what I've been telling my people. Please, we need to adopt the biotechnology law so that we study it in order to use it, but also to defend ourselves against the misuse. It's not good to keep away from biotechnology because other people will use it both positively and negatively, and we shall not be there to defend ourselves. So therefore, I'm very happy to be here, and I have made what I've been observing. Now, regarding the challenges which Professor Kokor pointed out, the speech was clear, long, and detailed. The achievements were 15 or 16. There were 15. Then there were a few problems. We are going to study them, and we shall respond. On the issue of salary, for scientists, our scientists, awonze musindika alotamye. You are pushing somebody who is quoting. Because I support that line. I have been having a war with some of my people, and this war started a little bit in Soroti Flying School. There we have got a government flying academy where pilots are trained, pilots and aircraft engineers. Now, because we still didn't have enough money in the whole government to pay all government workers well, then actually Professor Nsibambi, when he was Minister of Public Service, brought the idea of democratic suffering, that we should all suffer. If the money is not enough, all of us should get small. But the idea of Professor Nsibambi of democratic suffering was different from our Bayekera experience with the guerrillas. Because in the bush we had no food, very little food, and we would be democratically starving, all of us. But we said, although we are, and you know, when you have not eaten enough, you are always dozing. I think the body is trying to conserve the few calories by sending you to sleep so that you don't squander the little calories you have. Now, when you are hungry, you tend to doze. So we said, if we all doze, the enemy will come and kill all of us. So although we don't have enough food, let's give the soldiers on duty who are guarding the camp more food so that for them they are at least awake Even if we are asleep, if the enemy comes, they will engage him and then we shall wake up. So we're able to see the one on sentry duty, what they call sentry duty, the ones guarding, should get more food than the rest of us. And this is my logic when I say this, the scientists should get more pay for now, because otherwise we shall all be killed. That was my logic. So therefore, if these are scientists, academicians, now, because we need them urgently now. If we don't quote Shakespeare, because me, I am a person of literature, but if I don't quote Shakespeare, people will not die. But if somebody gets cellulitis and is not treated, he will die. So now, although I'm very clever, I can remember what Shakespeare said and how he said it, and he was looking this way. What we need now is the one who can treat cellulitis immediately now. Then in the future, we shall see how to handle this clever man of literature when we are able. So that's the logic why we say, please, if the money is small, let's start with these scientists. Because we need them to keep the roads open, civil engineers, the buildings, architects, the medicals, to keep us alive. So therefore, in that line, I would insist that the government science educators. No, but let me first finish the Soroti issue. Because of the other logic of Professor Nsibambi of democratic suffering, Soroti Flying School is under Ministry of Works. So there is the permanent secretary, the undersecretary in the ministry, there is the principal assistant secretary. These are all big people there. Then you come to the head of the school, he's there. And then you come to the pilot instructors and engineers, aircraft engineers. Now, they were paying them a smaller salary because they had to earn lower than the permanent secretary, to be lower than the principal secretary, to be lower than the undersecretary. But the pilots, the one who has qualified on a commercial jet engine, in the market is earning 25 million shillings. If he has qualified on a jet engine. So I bought 6 aircrafts for training. The school was there. The artificial training, the simulator was there. The airport is tarmacked, but all the teachers went away. They went to earn money from the airlines, and they refused to train my pilots. So I told my people, now, what are you doing here now? Why don't you pay these pilot instructors what they are paid in the market so that they keep your school open? Now the school is going to close. What sort of wisdom is this? So eventually they saw my point, and they started paying the pilots higher than the principal secretary. Principal secretary can go and we shall get another one. But this pilot instructor, we don't have another one. What do we do now? Do we close the school or what? You people banange munyambe okutegera ekigambo ekyo. It's not that we are against the big people. Even now, me as president, I get a small salary. I refused to go for high salary. I refused. Tumugenda kunyingiza mu nsobi. They were paying me 3.6 million. Then 20% I gave to NRM. So I think Mama, on the account, they put there 2.7 million. Then my people came and said, but President, in Tanzania and Kenya, I said, this is Uganda. Not Kenya, not Tanzania, not UK, not Pakistan, not Ndwawano. My people are still getting small salaries. There's no way I can get a big salary and then I say you remain with small. Let's pay these scientists well. Authority has nothing to do with pay. Even if I'm getting a lower salary than all of you here, you challenge me and then you will see who has what authority. Why do you mix authority with pay? Banyankore normally don't eat before the children have eaten. When they bring food, the old man will not eat. Have the children eaten? That's when he will eat. Even in Baganda, I saw them on Mikoro. Nanyinimu doesn't eat when the guests are eating. He just sits there, supervises. So therefore, Professor Katunguka, on the issue of if they are scientists, they must be paid for the government universities. They must be paid what they will be paid in the private sector, our scientists, in the government universities. I even heard that they don't get, because there's one of my people whom I talked to, and she told me that they don't get retired. There's some issue about retirement, something. What is the story in the universities about retirement? Huh? Professor Katunguka, you tell me. Do you have any problem with the retirement packages for our teachers? Is it different for government universities?
Your Excellency, the situation appears to be different from one university to another. There are some universities which contribute to NSSF, and others have their own retirement, in-house retirement packages.
Oh, you don't have a harmonized?
No, there is no harmonized retirement package for public universities. I think that was the matter of contention.
Is that a good thing or a bad one?
Your Excellency, I think it's a good thing.
Oh.
Because when they retire, then they have something to keep them going.
Is it good to have a non-harmonized?
No, I think a non-harmonized one would be treated differently from one institution to another. There are some institutions that have their own internal arrangements.
No, so Mbaleke, you have no problem.
Your Excellency, I think this matter was discussed in Public Universities Forum, and we are going to discuss it again and see whether we can come up with a plan, whether government can pay retirement packages for all retirees from government institutions, including universities.
Because I had one of my people who was really suffering, and when I asked her what was the problem, he said, you know, we in the university, because she was teaching in the university also, we in the universities, when we retire, what, so really, we are not the same like the public servants, and I was not happy. So, what will you do?
Your Excellency,
Chairperson, you are the chairperson, you advise me, because you said you are there to advise me. That's what Okokoro said. In the 15 points of Okokoro, one of them was to advise me. So I am now here to be advised.
Your Excellency, to be honest, I have not put my mind to this particular problem.
You can discuss it and come and advise me.
I'll do that, Your Excellency.
Through the minister.
Thank you.
So with these few words, I congratulate you. Katonda wabere.
Your Excellency, you deserve a standing rare ovation for this turning up for us. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Your Excellency, as one of the signs that you have visited the National Council, we have a souvenir magazine, and you are going to sign on it, and I request Honorable Peter Ogwang, PS Amara, Professor Kokor, Professor Katunguka, Professor Joy Kwesiga, Dr. Nora Mreira, Dr. Kagume, and Dr. Vincent Sembati, and Tito Kayugwa to go and witness the chief guest signing and on the diamond.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. We shall always remember the 20 years of the National Council for Higher Education. Our dear Minister and the First Lady, Mama Janet, we thank you very much. We shall have a camera moment after the signing. The management team of the National Council, please join in. After which we shall do the anthems. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. And our dear Minister. We are now going to have the anthems. Prisons Band, thank you very much. Your Excellency, thank you very much for being with us as we celebrate the 20 years. Our Minister, the First Lady, thank you. We thank you so much. Our guest lunch is going to be served, and please remain seated. I request all the ushers to go to the 2 tents and usher our guests to the serving points. Mary Innocent and your team. We thank you very much for honoring our invitation.
Yeah. Thank you, Maria. Thank you, our guests. Want to thank you. Want to apologize where things have not worked out the way you wanted. Next time we shall do better when we are celebrating another 20 years. That one I can assure you shall do better. But I want to congratulate you and thank you. Hosting such an event is not ordinary. Now, let all of us remain seated. Let us all remain seated and ushers be able to take our guests for lunch. The president has offered us lunch. Let us take our guests for lunch. Now, those who have souvenirs, those who have gifts, they are ready. Our staff will be able to give them to you so that you go with them. We thank you, and lunch is served.